Okay. All right, I think. All right, I'll be merciful. All right. So again, the vaccines have been delivered. First responders, you can see all that. Will college students be required to take the vaccine? That was my number 2 question of the week. 7 people asked me about that last week, one way or another. And I had somebody from another church ask me too. Notice the question we are debating in society is, can we be forced to take the vaccine, or can it be mandated? Or even, what if I have a spiritual objection to the vaccination? But I don't think those are the right questions, actually. It doesn't matter what you think. Say you say, I ain't going to take it, and they can't make me take it. Well, I'll talk about that in a minute. The question, however, should be, what will you do if participation in society is conditioned on taking the vaccine? I think you might take it. Or if your employer says you have to take it, what are you going to do? And there's every bit of possibility that my employer may require me to take it, right? It may not matter what I think about vaccines. I wish, please feel free to give me feedback on any of this. It all relates to what I'm going to cover with the students. How about a little legal history of mandated vaccines? I did some research, and it was very interesting research. I'll share it with you now. Jacobson versus Massachusetts, 197 U.S. 11, 1905, was a United States Supreme Court case, which the court upheld the authority of the United States, of states, not the United States, not federal, to enforce compulsory vaccination laws. Notice this, the authority of the states, and I would assume counties and cities, right? So the federal government is not going to have a mandate for you to take the vaccine. I know our current president-elect is saying he can make you take it, but and he's going to take it on national TV. All that's nice, but I'm not so sure that the federal government can do it. The court's decision articulated the view that the individual liberty is not absolute, is subject to the police power of the state. And that means the states like California, New York, Nevada, you know what I mean. This was a ruling regarding a smallpox vaccine in 1905, not the Spanish flu. The Spanish flu was solved with organic herd immunity in about a year and a half, and not vaccine herd immunity. Very interesting, huh? They didn't have lockdowns. Nearly all legal authorities will agree that the governors of states can and most will require vaccination, which will lead to schools and even private companies requiring the vaccine. So that's what I think, and where I think we'll be when we get to fall, okay? I mean, schools could say as a condition of being on campus, if they even are, they'll require you to get vaccinated, the students. Will CSU students be 100% on campus and in dorms in fall of 2021? Well, let's read the CSU statement. So I know a lot of you may have gained, well, I meant to poll you on that. I didn't do a poll though, sorry. The headline on their website says, I went to their website, I didn't look at the newspaper articles because I don't think they ever get it totally right. They also made it seem like it would definitely be 100%. But let's read the state of the CSU actual headline. And it says, California State University anticipates return to in-person coursework for fall 21 term. Well, first of all, it said anticipates, right? And second of all, it said in-person coursework. It didn't say class. It didn't talk about dormitories either, did it? So I wasn't too sure what that meant. So I looked in the article. California State University has announced that it is planning for an anticipated return to delivering courses primarily in person with the fall 2021 term. All right, again, nothing about dorms, nothing. So if you're in CSU locally, you could be on campus for some of your classes. It didn't say all of them. It said primarily. Maybe it'll be like, third and fourth year students. We don't know whether freshmen will be. It didn't say that in the statement. While we are currently going through a very difficult surge in the pandemic, there is light at the end of the tunnel with the promising progress on vaccines. So vaccine is a part of their plan to get back. And that's why I think that students are going to be required to take the vaccine, even to go as a day student. And finally, this quote was there. We're approaching planning, we're approaching planning for the fall 2021 term with the goal of having the majority of our on-campus experiences, oops, didn't say classes, returning. So I'm not so sure that every student will be back and will be in a dorm in CSU. Maybe this is good though. It's telling you that by spring they will be for sure, spring of 2021. It looks like that's when they're targeting to do that. So I just wanted to be sure that actually spring, am I saying that right? Yeah, I guess I had spring of 2022, excuse me, forgive me everyone. Spring of 2022, it seems like they'll definitely be open. But, and by the way, in my plan on my program, that's where I'm planning to be back in person if we are at all. Maybe we'll be forever changed, who knows. Other colleges have not stated if they'll be open in any way for fall of 2021. Not stated. UC hasn't said a word, nor have local privates. Keep asking your preferred colleges if they're taking steps to be open if they are currently closed. Remember the politics of all this. Look at the inclinations and the politics of the governor. Actually, the governor of the state where your school is what I wanted to say there. Then everybody isn't California looking at California, but what about the state that you're in? What's the governor's inclinations right now? Are they open right now? That's a clue. Some are open, some are closed. Some open, even though there's a surge, they stayed open. Here are my thoughts about this pandemic right now. Not that it makes much difference. I thought since I have a science degree and everybody seems to have an opinion, and I do a lot of reading and studying of this issue and looking at videos and looking at different things that are going on in the news and following this thing very close. First of all, I don't think enough is being done to push safe, approved treatments and antiviral preventatives. We're not talking about things that are cheap and easy to do to help you prevent it or make it manageable if you get it and keep you out of the ICU. As you know, most of you are already taking vitamin D because we've been inside so much. Many people are already taking zinc. They've heard about that. My doctor told me about zinc and vitamin D. Pretty cool doctor. He couldn't do something else for me couldn't give me something else that I really wanted, but he did tell me that. And also oxidation, he told me, was good for me since I was type 2. I mean, there are things we can be doing, but not enough is being said about it or promoted about it. We're just being told about locking down and closing restaurants, and we're not hearing about what's going to help us. And I'm deeply concerned about that. I'm going to do something with that with my students who are in college and our pre-med majors. They're going to help me to put pressure on Sacramento about this. The policies of society and the healthcare system prevent pre-ICU strategies. And I had a good friend who's overweight and had type 1 diabetes and was found to have COVID. When he had slight symptoms, right? When he went to his doctor said, just go home and rest. And I was deeply concerned about that. I thought I should be taking something in case I want to keep, it was 12% of all, as you'll see in a moment, 12% of all cases end up in the ICU, right? 12% of patients above 70 end up in the ICU once they're tested positive and go home. It seems to me if we fix that problem, we won't have nearly the deaths with COVID we think we're having. So I just thought I'd give my opinion. I don't know what it's worth. But I want to say to the students that please don't lose hope. Stay in there, fight hard, get good grades. I think it's all going to pay off in the end. One day we'll figure out that you're safe, okay? And let us all work it out as adults. And I'm always praying for my students. It's so much pressure on you, especially any of those who are here who are athletes. Maybe many of the students are not here because of the stress. Just can't take another Zoom meeting. Who knows? That could be part of the issue. Let's see. I think this is a repeat view graph. Okay, there it is. All right, okay, some of that repeat got in there. Sorry. Let's cover some typical December errors in the college admissions process. First of all, any questions or comments on what I covered with COVID, the COVID situation? Anybody? Make sure I'm not looking like a slouch on that. Anybody, any questions or concerns? No? All right. One thing I'm concerned about, if transcripts are sent, right? That's a deep concern that I would have this time of year. Uh, if transcripts are sent though to CSU and UC without a formal request from either, if they actually ask you for the transcript, you'll think they already have the transcript. So I hope no one and is sending transcripts to CSU or UC. And if your counselor does, please note that. And then if your student has asked for transcripts, send them again because they will shred them unless they ask for the transcripts. That's pretty important for CSU and UC. Of course, all other schools should be. Um, let's see. I'm concerned if schools fail to send the council recommendations to private colleges by the 15th in 2021. I think that's when I would begin to get concerned if I were you, if those recommendations have not been sent by that date. I have a couple of lingering ones I got to do, and I'll do those this week, well before that time of decision. I'm concerned about missed correspondence, a missed note in the portal or missed correspondence that students might have. We'll talk more about that later. And then if somebody's here who hasn't submitted their FAFSA yet, I begin to start thinking about it now. I mean, it's not due for CSU and UC till March 2nd, but also the CS profile. I mean, some private school stuff is due as early as January 15th. So you want to start thinking about the FAFSA, unfortunately, now over the Christmas holiday. Again, get a hold of me if you're having any trouble at all. You need me to go ahead and submit a FAFSA. Right now, I'm submitting FAFSAs for continuing students. I've done all the freshman ones, submitted about 50 or 60, but I can still submit a FAFSA late for a freshman. I would drop a continuing student to do a freshman student. They're that important right now. And don't forget the CS profile. I will have more to say about that. If on UC, I have a concern that if you're dropping second semester classes, you need to inform UC. UC is very dogmatic about drops of classes. So if you're going to drop a class in the second semester and you apply to UC, you need to tell them. It's very important. I may do a quick video on that. That's a common reason why some students' applications are dropped for UC. And that happens at the worst time. It's in the summer when you're getting ready to enroll in the schools when they find out about it, right? Because they get the final transcript. I have a concern that the GPA verification report, which is the first time many of you have heard about this report, has not been sent by the high school, by your high school, to the California State Aid Commission, and it relates to the Cal Grant and the middle class Cal Grant. So I really need you to check with your counselors and be sure they've sent the verification report. Usually it's done online, it's done in an automated form. It can also be mailed. They may have mailed them all, or they've forgotten if they had a changing counselor. So you want to ask your current guidance counselor whether the California GPA verification report was submitted to the school. Even if you make more money than you think, if you think you made too much money for a Cal grant, you could be eligible for leftover middle class grant money, which is a very small amount, but it comes out in the spring once all the other funds are used. So you definitely want to check on that. I'm also concerned if students are failing a key class, but not getting help. I did get 2 calls before about help with math. I'm actually the designated math tutor. Usually it's going to be math that the issue is going to come up in, or applied science of some sort, physical science. But if they're not getting help, it's the time to speak up before that exam, right? You don't want to come out with a D in a class right now. That's not going to work out too well. So I get those kind of concerns that we're not hearing about failed classes and helping the student. Here are your key 12th grade classes where problems will arise. English, Algebra 2, Chemistry, Physics, your first chemistry or physics class, and sometimes government. Those are the classes that could keep you out of college. If you fail a semester, it'd be too late to make it up in some cases. The FAFSA needs review to determine if all the schools are getting the FAFSA, because sometimes your college list changes or you add schools. I'm going to show you today, how to check on that. And you want to get a copy of this presentation If you want the exact procedure, you can email Christina. She's on the call tonight. It's cmartinez.eep@gmail.com. We'll repeat it again at the end. Somebody remind me if I don't. You want to get a copy of this presentation because there's 2 view graphs that have the exact procedures for something. I see that question there, Christina, if you want to get it ready for me in a minute, okay? Let's see.
Yeah, that's actually my comment, Deacon.
Oh,
It's
that's
my
you.
email.
Okay, yeah. Then you want to add, some of you might want to add, move this out of the way, adding college applications that more complicate the admissions process, right? I'll talk about how you decide when you want to add a school later, but sometimes students will add schools that complicate the process. They require the CS profile, require a lot of very difficult essays. You might check with me first before you add schools, because I know what a lot of you have done already. I can help you with that. This is the time to consider that, but be sure you don't add the wrong schools. Okay, I'll say more about that in just a minute, by the way. Let's talk about race issues. I just thought that I would start off the discussion of race issues with the racial incidents that didn't really happen. I know these incidents so well. These are some of the most promoted ones that occurred, these so-called racial incidents, and all of them are hoaxes. By the way, there's a website that has all the hoaxes on it. There are at least 150 hoaxes on that site, about 60 in the last 2 years. I don't have any from 2019 in this presentation. Couldn't find the view graphs, but you can Google racial hoaxes, and there's a lot of them. I'm ashamed to say that when Justice Smollett did what he did, I was pretty sure it was a hoax, only because I knew those kind of hoaxes happen on college campuses. Now, it doesn't mean that there aren't somebody who's a racist on a campus. I just want to point out a lot of these incidents didn't really happen. Oh, there it is, 50. Now it's 150, by the way. You might want to go to that site, Google that exact thing. I'm not going to pull them up here. I think when I was live, I showed a lot of them on the screen and showed videos. But a lot of these racial incidents are hoaxes. There's a professor, and his name is Wilford Haley, I believe, that wrote a book about this, has a whole book of hoaxes and telling what it means, that a lot of these hoaxes are, as you guessed, caused by Black students. One of my schools had a very upsetting thing occur during a Martin Luther King float. They had a parade or a float. What do you call it? Like a parade. The Black students had a float they designed that they claimed had been damaged, but the camera at the school showed that they damaged it. And one of my students got put out of the school over that, by the way. It was a very, very embarrassing situation. I tried to intervene, but the damage had been done because there had been some students that were thrown out of the school that didn't have anything to do with it. All right, so hoaxes are pretty common. This is not to say that, some things aren't occurring. And when they do occur and they are true, you'll be kind of surprised. Maybe you won't be. What happens? It's easy, parents, to be concerned about race. The media makes it very hard not to be concerned about race, don't they? We have Charlottesville, the Floyd killing, shooting of Blacks by police and violent riots, hatred for our current president, his earlier comments, hearing from teachers that most or all whites are white supremacists. In fact, we're even hearing, I bet some of these students, if they're here tonight, would tell us they hear it from some of their teachers now, that whites are, white supremacists or Nazis, and all of them agree with the KKK. Everything seems to be racially polarized about race. I don't know how you guys get through this. Teachers teaching in high school on critical race theory, which I won't cover today. I'll cover critical race theory in BLM when I cover after the new year, what I call campus ideologies, things college students are taught on campus that they have to guard themselves on. And of course, Project 619, which has been discredited even by liberal and left-wing professors as being an improper view of history. But nevertheless, all those things make us think we have a racist country, that all white people out to get all Black people. Thanks to the work, of Martin Luther King and other civil rights leaders, severe racism and apartheid, I'm sorry, no longer exists. There's no laws that say, Black people can't have this and that. And remember, it was all legalized in the 60s. We don't have it. Of course, the opinion today is that it just went underground and is systemic, but I won't deal with that today, like I said. Yes, there still is racism in America. By the way, lest you leave here thinking I said there's no racism, there's racism, but I don't think that that's entirely the relevant question when you're picking a college. The question is, can racism stop you? And I say, I used to use a certain word before no, but I took it out. I say, no. Hey, by the way, would you really want an education and enrichment director in the community to tell your child that white people can stop them? Oh, no, 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 no. Would you want them to be able to tell Hispanic students that the white man can? No, no, you can't stop them. They bad, they can't be stopped. Remember, I'm the James Brown man. I don't want nobody to give me nothing, open up the door, and I get it myself. That's me, right? So you wouldn't want an enrichment director to tell them that. You want them to feel empowered. Here's some of the realities about racism in America. Race, despite what people say, race relations are not just like they were in the 60s, 70s, or even 80s. I think things have gotten a lot better in this country. A lot of interracial relationships and marriages. There are a lot of white people who are voting for Black people. In fact, we got a Black president who received 54% of the white vote. So it's definitely can happen. We just elected a ticket that has a Black vice president, or of color anyway. Sorry, I didn't use the right expression. A woman of color on the ticket. So, it's maybe not quite as bad as the media says. Very, very, very few white employees are actually racist. It would end their careers. It's very rare and totally condemned. The white students that you encounter that are racially insensitive or say things you do not agree with can't stop you from succeeding. It's in your genes. White college presidents have told me they hope. I've had I'll just tell you about this. I won't do the bullets here. I had a white college professor call me in, say, I heard a lot about your students and I'm so thankful that you send them here and I'm glad to meet you. He was so nice to me, had a little lunch ready for me. You know what he told me during lunch in his office? And it blew my mind. He said he was so glad that we are getting more Black students on the campus. And he told me that he hopes that I go back and tell my Black students to push back on these white students and teach them how to communicate properly with Black students. Isn't that interesting? He wants the Black students to don't be afraid to push back and tell them, hey, let me correct you on how you speak to Black people and speak about our community. And that's a college president that really wanted to benefit from diversity, because that's what diversity is supposed to do. Personally, I prefer the image of Martin Luther King, the Tuskegee Airmen, Ida Wells, and others who bravely sought for unity between the races and succeeding in spite of racists. The president of the United States is only in a few more days. He couldn't keep you from succeeding even if he was in office. A president can't say anything about whether you're going to make it. Students should be taught to complain about the real racism, otherwise learn to educate white folks. Smiles. They do not all white people do not have tails and pitchforks. They don't. What's the solution? If you really just can't go to school with white folks, a lot of people just don't want to do it. They went to high school with them or whatever. They just don't want their students going. So they're looking at HBCU or traditionally Black college, and that's fine. But have you academically, students, earned that? If you've been bad and have great grades, bad means good, by the way, then your parents probably can afford it. But that's the question. Can your parents afford to take on that debt that they have to take on if they send you to Black college? If you can't get a large enough merit award, and you got to have really good grades. Yeah, but that's because PWIs are predominantly white institutions tend to give more money to qualified Black students on a percentage basis than Black schools. A lot of it's because of their budgets and their endowments. So keep that all in mind. If you want to go to black school, have you academically earned it? Do you, remember your parents going to have to take out that debt? And it's something to think about when you're picking a school. All right. All right. Any questions so far? Comments or questions? It's a quiet group. Yes, no, maybe so. All right. Let's look at, yes.
No, I was gonna say no questions.
Okay, good. Okay. Well, just want to make sure they don't have any. Y'all can always bust in and ask too. To some more, just a little more December stuff about CSU. If a student applied to CSU, they should be checking their email, unless I set it up for them or whatever. But they really should be checking the email in their portals every day. The first email they receive, a lot of you are not getting that check from me. So I'm going to make sure that it's known. In fact, we're going to make our rounds next week. Christina, I think we said we'll start making our rounds next week, right? Or over the holiday, to make sure students have opened their portals and done it correctly. We just wanted to make sure we finished the CSU application period, which was extended to the 15th. So we just finished yesterday working on our last applications. So now we'll start turning our attention, Christina and I, to assisting each student literally one-on-one with making sure their portals are open. Some we've already helped, the ones that applied earlier. So the first emails are that they confirm the application was received, a student ID is provided typically, and other general information, and portal setup is required. Communication from CSU varies. CSU Long Beach doesn't even use portals or letters. They use a very interesting status system on their website. So if your student applied to Long Beach, we'll get around to showing them that. Again, your student could be discovering that on their own. Like Sister Monica, I would expect and hope, and it's okay if she didn't, that Zoe's already set up her portals. If she hasn't, it's okay. Guess what? We'll be knocking on the door next week to see how it's going. Do you think she has, Monica? Sister Monica? Do you think?
Oh, yeah, I think so, Deacon Wilson. I'll confirm with her tonight.
And if not, you can be one of our first stops. What do you say? All right. Okay. I mentioned earlier about printing out the student aid report, which is a document that's generated when the FAFSA is delivered. Some of you did your own FAFSAs. Here are the steps, like I said earlier, to actually go in and view the student aid report. Why do we want to do that? Well, the answer is down the bottom here. Let me get this out of the way. I have something in the way here. Hold on. Because down here, you want to get the student aid report because you're going to check page 4 of the student aid report, and there's a list of schools there. If you find that a school is missing, don't panic. Things happen because you add schools later, or maybe we transcribed it wrong, or maybe you did. It's no cause to worry. You simply can add that school and have the procedure for adding the school coming up here shortly. But you want to perform that audit and make sure all the schools are listed, because right now you're still 2 months before the due date for even the earliest college, actually about 8 weeks in front of the due date for the earliest of colleges. And the CSU UC due date is March 2nd. So you got plenty of time without a lot of stress to make sure the schools are correct. There's no need to worry. Now, a lot of people who don't have a program like this should worry, right? Because what's going to happen is they're going to get to February and not have done this, and that could have an adverse impact. This is how you actually add colleges. This procedure is a little confusing. This is because it has that trust EEP step where you have to delete all your schools that are in there, then add the new ones, because you could have more than 10 schools. As a matter of fact, if you have more than 10, you find you have to add schools, probably a good idea to get a hold of me and let me do it for you. You can see this as you can actually follow these steps and do it, but you have this trust EEP faith step here, right? Where you have to remove all your schools and then add the schools that are above the 10. You'll find you have 2 student aid reports. But it's hard to think that way when you're deleting schools, right? But here are the procedures to actually add schools that you didn't deliver before. You have to delete all the other ones out and put in the schools that the 1 or 2 or 3 or even 10 more schools that you applied to. If you're having any trouble with that, I would get a hold of me. You have a quick 10-minute Zoom, add those right in front of you, okay? Now that we've finished the CSUs, we suddenly have all this time we didn't have before. Okay, the CS profile, it's a good time to see and make sure that your student doesn't have the CS profile. I didn't do animation here because I wanted you to look down here at this last bullet where it says, oops, where it says over 600 private colleges require the CS profile. It's now 700. And there's some examples: GW, all the Ivy League colleges, Georgetown, Syracuse, Fordham, they require the CS profile. Now, local examples: Occidental, USC, all the Claremonts require the CS profile. LMU does no longer requires it, okay? But it is a document. What is it? A document above and beyond the FAFSA that's needed to get financial aid from schools. If you're applying to a lot of selected private colleges, trust me, you have a CS profile requirement. Now it gets a little dicey, okay? Because along with the CS profile comes things like this: the non-custodial parent. So if there's a parent, the child has a parent that's alive and they interact with, they're gonna have to submit, that parent's gotta submit a non-custodial profile, which is really another CS profile, because they're gonna consider both incomes. 55% of all CS profile colleges require the non-custodial parent. USC does, they require non-custodial parent. Occidental does as well. Okay, Chapman does too. So it's pretty common to require the non-custodial parent data. And that's something you need to start working on over the holiday. Again, if you need help on any of these, get a hold of me. I think there are several students in here that may have a lot of schools that require the CS profile. You can know if it's required by college. There's a list. You can Google CS profile schools and you'll get a list of the schools that require the CS profile. And it also tells which ones will require the non-custodial profile. The cost is going to be $25 plus $16 for each additional college. So if you have one college, it's $41. That's really not written right. Then $16 per additional school. It's paid during the CS profile submission. If you had a SAT waiver, you have a CS profile waiver. If the income is below 30,000, I think you also have a waiver. The CS profile requires 2019 federal income tax data. Do not fully accept the FAFSA transcripts. Yeah, they don't accept FAFSA transcripts and tax return data retrieval. Okay, they get it all a different way through a process known as IDOC. We'll talk about in a minute. They have a third-party process we know as IDOC. So IDOC is how they get a look at your tax return. You upload the PDF. So again, if you have trouble with any of this, it's a little confusing. It's a little tricky to understand. You need to get a hold of me so I can help you through it, okay? GW, however, is a different kind of school because it has a federal charter. It can require and does require the actual tax return. There's no other school in America that could legally do that. GW does require the actual tax return PDF to be faxed to them. RC, any questions out there?
Yes, there's a question, Deacon.
All right, let's go.
So if the non-custodial parent is remarried, do they take that income into consideration as well?
Oh boy. Yes. Now ask me, do I like it? Christina, ask me. Ask me, do I like that?
Do you like that?
No,
Why?
I think it's disgusting. I think private schools cost too much already. Yeah, you know, you guys, I have a nice video I want you to see. I'll send it to you. It's just things like that. I just, so the answer is yes. And that's why, by the way, whoever asked that, I think I know who asked. Who did ask that?
Miss Cynthia?
Oh yeah, right. Well,
I'm sorry, I'm laughing because
yeah,
I'm with you. I don't like that either. I don't think it's fair.
it's disgusting.
It is.
It's
But life is.
Let me go ahead and get it off my chest. And what gets me upset is, parents, I'm so sorry. What gets me upset is, and I'll say it without profanity, is that these are schools that have large endowments. That's what upsets me. Okay, I got it off my chest there. Anyway, they're going to consider the second parent, even though they're married. They have some kind of formula. And yes, that creates tension because they're going to be viewing the income of that marriage partner of the remarried spouse. Now, there are possibilities for waiver of that requirement. So you need to check with me. But I think if the student is seeing the person regularly, you're going to be on the hook. And that's why when you do the list of colleges, I probably warned you about it, or I always try to make sure there's plenty of non-custodial, schools that don't require the non-custodial that are on your list. And there are lots of schools that don't require it. So there you go. Whole lot of them.
At least my saving grace is that I have twins. So I don't know. I don't know if they take that into consideration, but it's something.
Well, twins that are going the same year.
Yes.
Yeah, well, they would be. That was stupid what I said. Yeah, kind of like they do. So we need to talk about that a little more. I think we talked about it once before. There's a couple in here who do have a lot of private schools. I hope you're hearing this section and seeing how important and relevant that it is. You can get a hold of me later if you want to hear more about it. Here's some miscellaneous information. Waivers of the non-custodial requirement are more difficult to get approved than it were in the past. Probably should be considered when you apply for private colleges, right? How many are non-custodial? The cost of the profile is something to be considered. The online profile has been streamlined, but it's still very tedious. Less colleges do consider the NCP property equity, the non-custodial's property equity, investment savings, and even their 529 savings to determine your financial need and the needs of your student who's custodial to you. Let's do some career planning review here. This is a view graph that I presented before, but I have some new view graphs about career planning that I want to show today. Colleges, this is some top issues I'm seeing. College is not only about getting away or getting a degree, it's about starting your life. Remember, I talked about that. Please recognize career starts that are experience-based. That's really going to become important with the economy changing even again. It's going to be much more experience-based. Please recognize great careers that do not require a specific major. And please recognize careers that are not a major, pre-med, pre-dental, et cetera. The only career that is a major is engineering. We talked about these. And I talked about this, so I'm going to spend a little more time on. Do I have anything new there, Christina? No?
Yes.
Okay.
The next question is, does the other party of the non-custodial parent have to fill out the CSS as well?
Well, no, but usually there's a joint return, right? So they're seeing that information there, unless the non-custodial parent is filing separately, right? And I don't know how they'll do that because then they'll just request it. I mean, because if you file your status as married filing separate, you have to list the social security number of your other spouse. So it's kind of hard to explain, but you know what I mean. And they could request that return also. So if there's a joint return, they're going to get it anyway, right? And there usually is. Any tax man's going to tell you to file jointly. I know now I can tell you guys know I'm divorced in my second marriage, and we filed joint. I mean, so I guess if we had a child in college, they'd see both our incomes, right? That's the point too, isn't it? And they would also see, my ex's income if it was a child of ours. So yes, they're seeing it all. And yes, they have a formula for using it all. And yes, they'll sometimes, get real huffy if they don't get it. Okay, I hope that answered that question. Again, you can tell by my attitude, I'm not really pleased with the answer. Here's a view graph I presented last week, but it was a little rushed. A college is not only about getting away or getting a degree, it's about starting your life. And we'll talk more about that on the 29th when the youth are here, youth only for the career meeting. Why are you created? It may ultimately be a spiritual issue, right? Yeah, I will praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are your works that my soul knows very well. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Do you realize that it was a personal an individual effort when God created me, when God created you, and then your youth when God created you guys. There was a purpose and a plan, hallelujah, for your life and for this earth due to your presence. And then college is supposed to be a tool in finding out more about that. Your college choice, therefore, should be about starting your life, right? I know it's hard to see that after all this domination by adult decision makers, but the college choice is about starting your life. I did experience-based career start with nursing last time, and I just want to give you an example of videography and filmmaking. Being a filmmaker has nothing to do with the degree. It happens in stages. I'm not saying a filmmaker shouldn't have a degree. It's okay. But let's not think that I always ask when a student says they want to do film, if you want to make films, go ahead and make them. There's so many ways to make them now. There's video podcasting, YouTube, websites, blogs for nonprofits and family. And you can make a whole lot of videos now. Right now, you can jump on YouTube, get a camera, and use your cell phone even. Or actually, you can get a more elaborate camera and film short subjects like one of my students did. He actually made short movies and short subjects with his camera. How to learn it more affordably in school? I think you ought to go in parallel to some of these great two-year college programs while you're in four-year college. LA City College and West Los Angeles College have had millions of dollars of investment in their filmmaking programs, millions of dollars. George Lucas gave $6 million to West LA College, and they formed a very excellent program. I've had students go over there postgraduate and learn how to be a grip for NBC. One of them's a grip for NBC, making about 125 G's, even during COVID. You can learn a career very easily if you really want to get into filmmaking and television production and things like that. The two-year colleges are excellent parallel way to learn it while you're in college, getting your four-year degree. So you get the idea of these, you're doing stuff while you're in college. How about the medical doctor and the veterinarian? I have a record number of students who want to go into medicine or want to be a psychologist or want to be into veterinarian and take care of animals. Well, it's not so hard when you look at it in parallel. High school student can go to a four-year college. Now, here's a clue. You take a, quote, related BA degree, like biology, chemistry, psychology, or a BS degree, public health and health science. You stay away from the BS in chemistry or biology. Those are usually where medical careers end, okay? You start to learn a whole lot of stuff. You don't need to be a doctor, all right? And here are the classes you'll take while you're in college. Now, I just learned today that Biology Lab 2 is optional in some schools. Some schools won't require you to take it, won't recommend that you take it if you want to be a doctor. But everybody has biology in Lab 1, and they could just be a second semester of in-class only. Biochemistry, chemistry in the lab, organic chemistry, calculus 1, and sometimes calculus 2. You take those classes, and guess what? You're ready to prepare for the MCAT, which is the medical exam for medical school, and you're ready to take the test. Usually students take off a year to do this. Most students will have to take the year to prepare, and they do some work on the side that's related to what they're doing. They volunteer for a clinic or they do something that helps their application while they're preparing for the MCAT. I have 2 students in that stage now. I have 3 that are in medical school and 5 that already have become doctors. And again, they use this exact process. They didn't get in there and do some heavy science and get in trouble. After the MCAT, you're ready for medical school. Then after medical school, you become a practicing doctor, okay? That's the process. At any point along the way, right, you can take some experience-based things. In that 1 year period that's out here, right? I started to show it on here. You could, in that 1 year period, do some volunteer work in a clinic, go get a certification as an EMT, get some kind of job that you can take, that you can do while you're in medical school, right? And then you go on and become a practicing doctor, okay? I think I said some other place at an earlier meeting that I even want to see you take the low-cost approach to medical school. Don't think you have to get $500,000 in debt to be a doctor. There are lots of ways to go and save a lot of money on that, but that's not what this meeting is all about. This meeting is all about understanding experience-based career starts, or the quickest way in this case to become a doctor. The quickest, most efficient way to become a doctor. And all those different things are related to doctoring. You know, some say anesthesiologists, physical therapists. You know, some people want to be an athletic trainer. I hope you don't think you're going to work on anybody's ankle or anybody's body without really being close to a doctor. Okay? So all those kind of things are there. We did nurse last week. We have other experience-based careers. I just made the list shorter because I did some today. We'll cover some of these in the 20th session, the special session on the 29th of December that I'm planning for the students. All right. I just want to remind you that if we submitted your CSU with our username and password, you created an email address for each student. We have the login information. You can contact Christina. Of course, if you're under agreement with us, we're going to pivot around and work with your student directly anyway. Please get the email address and password if you need to from us. We have it. If you did not set up the account, you must watch closely for yourself. A lot of students we trusted to do it themselves. They've done well. But just be careful to be sure you're checking your email, that you're setting up your portals. Because definitely if we don't have your email address, we actually can't help you very much. By the way, CSUs that are still open, there are at least 3, probably 5. I couldn't confirm the other 2. There's still CSUs that are taking applications, even though we're past the 15th. I just thought I would show you their due dates as well. Okay? There are others we think too. We won't know till tomorrow because CSU doesn't officially say that until midnight tonight. All right? Talk about adding new college applications. There actually is a systematic way to do that. Only add a college if it is 100% going to be more affordable, or at least the same cost as your other colleges. You don't want to add schools that are going to cost more, do you? Again, check with me. I can help you with that. Add colleges that are different than your existing colleges. Say you applied to all Black colleges, or either all predominantly white. I don't know. Add different kinds of schools. There's 6 different types. Now add a public university out of state. Add a public university in another state, or a private university that's going to be affordable. Add colleges you have a chance of visiting. And this, maybe you're going to, all your colleges on your list now, you can't visit because they're closed. Maybe you'll add a school or 2 where you can actually visit. I mean, any schools in Arizona or Nevada or Idaho or Washington State, guess what? You can visit those schools. They're open. Add colleges that both youth and parent want to add. You work together with your parents. Parents work with your youth on schools to be added. Add colleges whose application process does not adversely affect grades. You don't want to add a school that's very difficult to do their application and it takes away from your responsibilities. Okay, all right, that's all I officially had for you today. Let me stop the share and see if there's any additional questions. I have an announcement to make too. Are there any additional questions that you'd like me to answer?
Not in the chat box, but I don't know if parents want to ask their question out loud.
Yeah, they can ask out loud. Anybody? I don't know how, Ariana, you're here. Hi, Ariana. Ariana, hi.
Hello.
You're gonna be my official class of 2022 here, huh?
Yes.
Did you learn anything?
Yeah, a lot. I took notes.
I know you did. That's why I called on you. I officially let you be here for that reason. You can come to any of my meetings. I used to do that. I used to have at least a couple 11th graders attending my 12th grade meetings. So in that spirit, I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
All right. If any of you feel you wish your students had seen this meeting, that's cool. Let them come on the 29th. There's some cool stuff there I'm gonna cover in terms of career. I wish you could get them to come. I know it's during the holiday and the last thing they want is a Zoom meeting. I didn't even want to do it, but I think I have to. I got a real good speaker and we're going to talk about career. And I hope they can make it. I'll be emailing more about that very shortly. There'll be a page dedicated. There already is a page to it on the website. So thanks for coming. I also want to say, have a very Merry Christmas. So since this is a faith-based program, I don't do the happy holidays thing. I respect all faiths though. I say Merry Christmas because that's what we're going to do. We're going to do Merry Christmas. And I guess if I don't see you before that, a Happy New Year as well. I really wish you would do that, okay? Tomorrow night, we have a special presentation from George Washington University. I think many of you have been invited, or your students have been invited. There are going to be some nice prizes given out. And good old Lee Stork will be there from a nice selective back East College, George Washington. I hope you'll join us, be there for that. Should be a very good presentation. All right, there's not any more questions. I guess we're at the end. Thank you very much.
Deacon.
Thank you.
And thank you.
Happy
Thank you.
holidays.
Thank you, Deacon.
Wel-
Thank you.
welcome, Sister
And
Danielle.
Merry Christmas,
Thank you,
Happy New
Deacon
Year.
Wilson.
Merry Christmas.